good day to all of us. I am Lisa Missy Pablo and I am a reporter for today. So, my report is all about species interactions and keystone species. At the end of the discussion, we are going to define species interaction and keystone species. Describe the 5 major types of interaction between species and explain the types of keystone species. Species interaction. What's the difference between lions in a zoo and lions in the wild? In the wild, lions are part of a community in the food web. In African savanna, lions hunt zebras, fight with hyenas, and feed upon fleas and ticks. Interactions like this were part of the evolution of the lions that you see in zoos. Any species is best understood by looking at all the relationships the species has within its native communities. Species interaction refers to direct and indirect interrelationship or association between different organisms, which could be between plants and animals, plants and plants, and animals, as well as the microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, and the like. An organism niche, the unique role of a species within an ecosystem, is its niche. A niche includes the species' physical home, the environmental factors necessary for species survival, and all the species' interactions with other organisms. A niche is different from habitat. An organism's habitat is a location. However, a niche is an organism's pattern of use of its habitat. For example, the beaver. Beaver lived in a riparian system. They keep these systems healthy and in good repair. By cutting down trees, beavers maintain a reliable pool of water for many species, and they create a small wetland in the process. Clearing out trees allows young trees to grow. Their lower branches give easier access to many species. A niche can also be thought of as a functional rule or job of a particular species in an ecosystem. For example, American bison occupied the niche of large grazing herbivores on American grasslands. Kangaroos occupy a similar in Australian grasslands. Herbivores often interact with carnivores, such as lions, if they both exist in the same habitat. Some parts of the lion niche are shown in the figure 1. There are types of interactions between two species, so we are going to discuss 4 of them. First one is competition, in which both of the species are harmed. Each species negatively affects the other, just like the fox and the coyote, which are predators of the same prey. The next one is predation and parasitism, which one of the species is benefited while other is harmed, in which species A feeds on species B. Just like the kit fox hunts and feeds on kangaroo rat. The third one is mutualism, which both of the species are benefited. Each species is helpful to each other. The yucca moth, which pollinates and lay eggs on yucca flower. Moth larvae spread yucca seeds, which cause yucca flowers reproduction. The last one is commensalism. Commensalism, in which species A benefits from species B, in which B is not affected. Only one is benefited and one is unaffected. Ways in which species interact. Interaction between species are categorized at the level where one population interacts with another. The 5 major types of species interactions are summarized in Figure 1, which we had discussed. Our competition, predation, parasitism, mutualism, and commensalism. These categories are based on whether each species causes benefit or harm to other species in a given relationship. Keep in mind that the benefit or harm is in terms of total effects over time. Also, note that other types of interaction are possible. Many interactions between species are indirect and some interactions do not fit a category clearly. Other types of interactions seem possible but are rarely found. Therefore, many interactions are neither categorized nor well studied. A relationship between different individuals or populations attempt to same limited resources are called competition. Each individual has less access to the resources and so is harmed by competition. Competition can occur both within species. So we have learned that members of the same species must compete with each other because they require the same resources. They occupy the same niche. When members of different species compete, we say that their niches overlap, which means that each species uses some of the same resources in a habitat. So for example, the barnacle species Tamalos stellatus uses less of its potential niche when competing for space with the similar barnacle species, the Simila balanus balanoides. Tamalos niche size when competition is present, and Tamalos niche size rather when competition is absent. So they are competing with space. So the next interaction is predation. An organism that feeds on another organism is called the predator, and the organism that fed upon is the prey. This kind of interaction is called predation. Examples of predation includes snakes eating mice, bats eating insects, or whale consuming krill. Just like in figure number 4, it shows a predatory bird with its captured prey. Predation is not as simple to understand as it seems. So we may think of predators as meat-eating animals, but there can be less obvious kinds of predators. In complex food webs, A predator may also be the prey of another species. Most of organisms have evolved the same mechanism to avoid or defend against predators. Some predators eat only specific types of prey. So just like the figure number 4. So this predatory bird had to outrun its prey. So many organisms are adapted to avoid predation. The next one is parasitism. So an organism that lives in or on another organisms and feeds on the other organism is a parasite. The other organism the parasite takes its nutrients from is known as the host. The relationship between the parasite and its host is called parasitism. Examples of parasites are ticks, fleas, tapeworms, heartworms, blood-sucking leeches, and mistletoe. So just look at the figure number 5. So parasites such as ticks, which on the left, and the intestinal worms in our body in the right, could be harmful to us. You probably try to avoid this parasite almost as if they were predators. In in what ways are parasites like predators? So they are feeding on the host. So that is why they are just like a predator. So the photos of parasites in figure number 5 may make you feel uneasy because parasites are somewhat like predators as just what I have said. So the differences between a parasite and a predator are that parasite spends some of its life in or on the host, and that the parasites do not usually kill their host. In fact, the parasite has evolutionary advantage if it allows its host to live longer. However, the host is often weakened or exposed to disease by the parasites. So, the next one is mutualism. So, many species depend on another species for survival. So, in some cases, neither organism can survive alone. A close relationship between two species in which each species provides a benefit to the other is called mutualism. So, certain species of bacteria in your intestine form a mutualistic relationship with you. These bacteria help break down food that you could not otherwise digest or produce vitamins that your body that cannot make. In return, you give the bacteria a warm, food-rich habitat. Another case of mutualism happens in the ant acacia trees of Central America, which could be shown in figure number 6. So most acacia trees have spines that protect them against plant-eating animals, but the ant acacias have additional protection, an ant species that lives only on these trees. The trees provide these ants shelter within hollow thorns as well as food sources in sugary nectar glands and nutrient-rich leaf tips. In turn, the ants defend the tree against herbivores and many other threats. So just like the figure number 6, these acacia trees in Central America have mutualistic relationship with these ants. The trees provide food and shelter to the ants, and the ants defend the tree. So the last one is commensalism. So a relationship in which one species benefits and the other species is neither harmed nor helped is called commensalism. An example is the relationship between a shark and a type of fish called remoras, which are shown in figure number 7. Remoras attach themselves to sharks and feed on scraps left over from the shark's meals. Another example of commensalism is when birds nest in trees, but only if the birds do not cause any harm to the tree. Even a seemingly harmless activity might have an effect on other species. So in figure number 7, remoras have a commensal relationship with sharks. Just we have discussed earlier, so it attached themselves to shark in order to eat scraps from the shark's meals or to hitch a ride elsewhere. The remoras cause neither benefit nor harm to the shark. There are many examples of freeloaders and scavengers in nature. So, a relationship that we are going to discuss next is symbiosis and coevolution. It is a relationship in which two organisms live in close association. It's called symbiosis. Many types of species interactions are considered symbiotic in some cases. Symbiosis is most often to describe a relationship in which at least one species benefits. Over time, species in close relationships may co-evolve. These species may evolve adaptation that reduce the harm or improve the benefit of the relationship. Recall that harm and benefit are measured in total effects over time. For example, coevolution can be seen in relationships of flowering plants and their pollinators. Many of types of flowers seem to match the feeding habits of certain species of insects or other animals that spread pollen. So that's all for the type of interaction with different two species. So the next one that we are going to discuss is all about Keystone species. So it is known as the biggest players in the community. It holds a community together. Removal of the keystone species dramatically alters the structure and function of the community. A trophic cascade occurs. In general, a keystone species is predator that prevents a particular herbivorous species from eliminating dominant plant species. So a species that is critical to an ecosystem. So it affects the survival and number of many other organisms in the community. So for example, the grizzly bears. So salmon come into the rivers from the ocean. Grizzly bear eat the salmon, poo nutrient-rich poo, and leave behind partially eaten carcasses in the forest. So this feeds the forest with its nutrients. So keystone species is an organism that helps define the entire ecosystem. Without its keystone species, the ecosystem would be dramatically different or cease to exist together. Keystone species have low functional redundancy. This means that if the species were to disappear from the ecosystem, no other species would be able to kill its ecological niche. The ecosystem would be forced to radically change, allowing the new possibly invasive species to populate the habitat.